Hey, Jeff, what's going on, big brother Jeff?
DeAndre, how are you, man?
I feel good. I'm all right. I can't complain. Happy Martin Luther King Day of service to you, sir.
Same to you. Same to you. Glad to
Yes,
celebrate it.
sir. All right. So, for all y'all that's going to be tuning in to today's class, we got big brother Jeff Wadlin. You know what I mean? I don't really know who he is, but I already feel like I know who he is because he's the big brother to my big brother. You know what I mean? And they have a really great relationship that I'm actually very appreciative of because we need people like Jeff in our life in order to help our life steer in the right direction. And so today we're going to talk a whole lot about finance, especially personal finance, and try to help some of you all as the year has turned into 2024. That being said, as y'all know, I'm wearing my West Side hoodie. We support local. So for those that's tuning in, you know the Facebook, you know the YouTube, and that's the one you should get most familiar with. Go to YouTube, DeAndre Rudis. My name is my name. It won't never change. Subscribe, like, share, and then comment something that you learn by watching this particular video. And I'm gonna choose a person at random that do all four so they can grab one of these hoodies from 290 Tucked and stuff. You know, again, we support local around here. And I need to see y'all, especially on the West Side, rocking West Side proud in your red West Side hoodie. So you do all four of those things, and it's on you. I got the large and I got the extra large left. So that being said, we're gonna welcome you right into the class the right way, big brother Jeff. And like I was saying, you big brother to my big brother, Mosaic Monk. And he always talks a lot about the way that you approach life, right? And for lack of better words, he always said that I'm the white version of you, or the black version of you. You know what I mean? He say
All
you're the
right.
white version of me, and he said our paths are very similar in that we both have gone to school and gotten MBAs, and we've both involved in politics and are very community oriented, and we both a little frugal in some ways. We like to save our money, invest our money, and make sure that we spending our money right. And so I thought, what better way to kick off one of these episodes than to bring you right in. So the floor is yours, big brother Jeff. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, sure. So, yeah, I mean, I've kind of lived my life sort of a pretty stereotypical way. I grew up in Chapel Hill, North Carolina, went to the University of Virginia and studied mechanical and aerospace engineering. Worked for Caterpillar for a few years after I graduated. Started out as a project engineer and then got more into sales and management. So decided I wanted to go back to get my MBA. Went to get my MBA at Kellogg, just north of Chicago there,
Mm-hmm.
at Northwestern in
Mm-hmm.
Evanston. And it was actually after I graduated there and started a business called NextPart with two of my classmates. NextPart was a online marketplace for used auto parts. So
Mm-hmm.
we basically helped insurance companies more easily find used auto parts, which helps keep the cost of their claims down.
Mm-hmm.
And anyway, when I was running that company and living in Chicago, I had moved down into Lincoln Park. And that's when I got involved in the Big Brother program and met Bryant, aka Mosaic Monk.
Yes,
And so
sir.
we kind of remained close all these years. And then that company went under. I went to work for Capital One in Northern Virginia and McLean, Virginia. And then I moved out to Arkansas to work for Walmart, Sam's Club, actually, and started there in decision sciences, and then moved into membership and kind of helped turn the company around and sort of basically hit all-time highs in terms of membership count, membership renewal rates, membership acquisitions, membership income. So that was a pretty exciting time. And, as you were saying, I am pretty frugal. And, so, part of making it in life and making money and building your net worth, obviously, is to have as high of an income as you can, but also always living below your means,
Mm-hmm.
and that difference between what you make and what you spend, obviously, you can save and invest. And
Mm-hmm.
so being, frugal like that and saving and investing all my life, and we can talk here in a minute a little bit more about my investment strategy. But that basically allowed me to retire at 50.
Mm-hmm.
So a couple of years ago, I retired from Sam's Club, and now I do a little bit of consulting here and there on the side,
Mm.
but just have a lot more time to, pursue my hobbies and spend time with my family and friends.
Yeah, for sure. You chilling. You look good to be 50. I mean, but 50 should look good anyway. It don't look like you. I don't see any stress on you. No forehead wrinkles or anything.
Hey, I got them. I got them.
I got them too. No, that's just that you just that's because you're making your eyebrows go up. I got them too, and I do that. No, man, no, sir. 50 years old, retire. So how do you spend retirement right now? Other than I know you kick it with the family. Of course, you gotta give some love to them because you wouldn't even be in the position to have retired early without them. But what else do you do?
Well, I got remarried a couple years ago,
Mm.
and my wife Kay and I we really like to travel. So we take a few trips each year. We try to do one international trip. Last year we went to Ecuador and went to the Galapagos Islands and got to see a lot of the wildlife there. Did some scuba diving and snorkeling. So that was a lot of fun. I really enjoy the outdoors too. So backpacking, mountain biking, those sorts of things.
Nice.
Did a big backpacking trip this past fall. That was about 200 miles.
Mm-hmm.
I've gotten back into CrossFit now that I have a little bit more time.
Mm-hmm.
And then, like I said, I do a little consulting here and there.
Yeah.
And poker is another one of my hobbies. I really like playing poker. It's a really fascinating and complicated game. So it's one of those things that takes a minute to learn and a lifetime to master.
Okay.
So that'll hopefully never get old.
Okay. So you made your bread. Now you want to gamble it all away. Come on. Come on, big brother Jeff.
If you play right, it's not gambling. If you play
Okay.
blackjack and slots and craps and roulette, that's definitely gambling, and you are guaranteed to lose money over the long term. But in poker, since you're playing against other people and not just against the house, it is possible to make a profit in the long term. So,
okay. I'd like to say that something you just touched on again really establishes what Mosaic was saying about the way we mirror each other. So I got involved in CrossFit about 3-4 years ago when I ran for alderman, which is a councilman here in the city of Chicago, and I lost about 21 pounds or so in 6 weeks doing CrossFit. Yeah, I actually took their challenge that they had. It was like you put down $550. You do the 6-week challenge. They give you a meal plan, and you come in about 3 times a week. And I stuck to it, and I put that work in. And I actually would have won the challenge, if you will, if I would have lost 25 pounds. But the first week, I was playing around with my dieting, So but the next 5, I stuck to it a bit better, and I enjoy CrossFit.
Yeah, man. If you want to lose weight, it's all about diet. You can't exercise your weight to losing weight. It's losing weight is all in the kitchen.
No, that's for sure. I'm actually engaged in a 90-day weight loss challenge at Export Gym. So summarily, I have to get a personal trainer, and I have to have so many check-ins at the gym, so many sessions with him, buy some supplements, but also focus on a diet. And that's the one thing that I started out doing right away. So I weighed myself. I was 263 last Monday, and this Monday when I weighed myself, I am about 253.
Oh wow,
something like that.
That's
yeah,
great.
but I lose weight fairly quickly, and I've been very active. I mean, walking my 10,000 steps every day before it got negative out here in Chicago, and then I've turned to juicing too as a way to really get some vitamins and minerals, and while also fasting. So.
Yep. Yeah, I think intermittent fasting is a great strategy.
Mm-hmm.
I've never really done that, but I've had some friends who've had good success with it. The most success I ever had was low carb, basically keto or South Beach or Atkins or whatever you want to call it. But yeah, if you have the discipline to not eat any sugar or carbs and stay with it for many weeks, your body will burn fat like crazy.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. And I'm looking forward to winning. It's a $5,000 grand prize.
Oh wow, nice.
Yeah. So that has me even more hyped. I knew I was gonna lose the weight and I was gonna put the work in with the personal trainer, but the extra skin in the game really has my mindset. I'm really pumped on making it happen. So
Yeah, I like that. Well,
yes,
and the
sir.
juicing I think is a good idea too. I try to do that every few days. I'll have one of those big blenders and I'll put spinach and an
Mm-hmm.
apple and carrots and just all kinds of veggies and stuff in there.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I think that's a great way to make sure you're getting enough vegetables.
No, the right way. You're absolutely right. So before we really get into the financial topics and things, there was a rumor that you are a direct descendant of a very famous individual. Come on,
Well,
man.
yeah, I know what Bryant told you. So apparently, I am a blood relative of George Washington, but not a direct descendant.
Okay.
So I think I'm descended from his grandfather or great grandfather, who I think was named William Ball
Mm-hmm.
in England in whatever 1600 or something.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, one of my cousins on my dad's side, the Wadlin side of the family, he figured that out at some point and kind of sent out the notice to all of us in the family that he had, traced it back up the line from my grandmother's side of the family
Yeah.
and found that connection. So yeah, I don't think it's very meaningful. I probably got one millionth of a fraction of
Okay.
George Washington in me. So,
Yeah.
but it's an interesting piece of trivia.
Yeah, very, very much so. And I think it's interesting because and I wanted to tie this in and then we'll move on for sure, which is as I was running for public office, someone that was doing a genealogy project reached out to me because my second cousin is also like an advocate activist in their own right in Indiana, in a part of Indiana. And the guy reached out to me because he was like, "Hey, this is your second cousin. He's doing this." And then he told me of another cousin, and I looked her up, and she has some activism in her blood and the things that she's done. And then my aunt that lives here in Chicago, and my uncle, and there's quite a few folks that are really like huge advocates and activists that come from the bloodline. So I'm just curious, is there outside of yourself anyone in your family that has been involved in politics?
No, not really. Not that I know of. Not in politics.
Okay.
Some community involvement in various
Yeah.
ways. My grandfather actually on my father's side worked for NASA, kind of back in the early days when they were doing Apollo and all of that. He didn't work on Apollo, but he worked on some other things.
That's cool.
But yeah, that's some interesting history. And then apparently on my mother's side, and I haven't confirmed this, there's a family member that I have in Southampton County, Virginia, with all that family history, but there's a rumor that we're related to Jefferson by marriage.
Wow.
And then there's some other like Revolutionary War ties and
Yeah.
yes, definitely some interesting family history. We got some folks that have been over here for a long time.
Okay. Okay. Nice. So to get into the shits, if we will, like I said, Brian, Mosaic has always referred to you as somebody that knows what they're doing when it comes to the money. And as you stated from the outset, the goal should be to try to get as high as an income as possible, staying well below the means, and investing and saving what you can. So folks that's watching this can also be 50 when they retire, looking good just like you, you
Yeah.
know. And so to that end, I have several questions that I would like to ask. That way, as I go back and break up some of this video, it's already laid out for us. So is that okay if I just throw you some questions and
Yeah,
you
go
just
for it.
answer? Okay, cool. So let me see. What's a good starting question? You know what? You said strategies earlier, and so let's just start right there, and then we'll see where we go. And I have some other questions. Hopefully, that lines up with where we're going. So, the first question: are there any specific investment strategies or philosophies that you follow?
Yes, I follow the most simple investment strategy there is, which is index funds. And so that's not a new strategy. Actually, before the show, I was doing some research. The guy who started Vanguard Investments, who is John Bogle or Jack Bogle,
Mm-hmm.
was one of the early advocates of that index strategy, index fund investing strategy. And also, there's a very old book called The Random Walk Down Wall Street, which that's decades old. That book also talks a lot about kind of the wisdom of index fund investing. And so what an index is, like, when you're listening to the radio or, watching CNBC or something, you see they're talking about the Dow and the S&P and the NASDAQ and the Russell 1000 or whatever, right? All those different things are indexes. Like the Dow is the index of the 30 biggest, companies. The NASDAQ obviously is all the companies listed on the NASDAQ. The S&P 500 is the 500 biggest companies and so forth. So there's all these different indices. And there are companies that make mutual funds or ETFs, which are basically the same as mutual funds, but you can trade them like a stock. And they make mutual funds that just track the index. So that way they don't have to have any kind of mutual fund manager that's making any decision. It's all very automated. They just create this fund and they just track the index exactly. And since they don't have to pay any management to manage the fund, it's much less expensive. So there's no fees taken out of the fund for managing the fund. And so that's one of two reasons why index funds are better than actively managed funds. So an actively managed fund just means, like you could start your own actively managed fund, right? And you could call it the XYZ fund. And you could say, okay, I think these 100 stocks or these 10 stocks or whatever the number is, these 100 stocks are going to perform better than all the other stocks on the market. So I'm going to buy only those 100 stocks and put that into this fund. And then you're going to change those stocks in and out as they go up and down to try to make that perform better than the stock market on average. But the problem with that is nobody is smarter than the stock market. Nobody.
For sure.
No mutual fund manager, no matter how good they are, nobody is going to outperform the stock market in the long term. Now, is it true that some index funds some mutual funds or ETFs, some, actively managed funds outperform the stock market in any one year? Absolutely.
Yeah, Nancy Pelosi stock does.
Yeah, right.
I follow. So I'm on Twitter with it. So I follow Nancy Pelosi stock tracker. That's why I knew to get into
NVIDIA, yeah.
NVIDIA. There we go. Thank you so much. NVIDIA when I did, and I've made a nice return off NVIDIA.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Well, insider trading aside, that's illegal. It shouldn't be done. But yeah, I guess if you could do it, you would have an edge. But basically the point is that, like, just due to randomness, any one fund might outperform the overall stock market in a particular year, but over time, no fund manager is going to be able to outperform the stock market. They might be able to do it for 2 years or maybe even 3 years, but nobody's going to be able to outperform the overall stock market on average for 5, 10, 20 years.
Right.
So that, number one, is why you should not invest in an actively managed fund, is because it's not going to outperform the overall market over the long term. And then secondly, like I said, is they're going to charge you a fee for that. Right. So let's say the stock market returns on average 10% a year, but then you buy this actively managed fund and they charge you half of 1%. Well, that doesn't sound like much. It's only half of 1 percentage point. And so instead of earning 10% a year, you're going to earn 9.5% a year. So it's just a little bit less.
Right.
But why would you invest in something that's going to, earn you a lower rate over time, and is even further lowered by the fact that they're charging you a fee for that? And by the way, that 0.5%, it doesn't seem like much in any one year, but once you do the compound interest over 10 or 20 years, it adds up to a lot, So if I haven't done the math, but let's say you invest $10,000 in at year zero. Well, 20 years later at 10%, that might have increased to $30,000. But if you're paying this mutual fund manager, instead of being at 30,000, you might only be at 28,000. So you're giving up a lot of money in the long term if you're paying somebody to manage your money.
So real quick, let me touch on this. Mutual funds. You've mentioned that a few times, and so some folks.
What's that?
Oh, I said you touched on mutual funds.
I lost you there for a minute. Are you on mute?
Am I back?
Okay, now I got you.
I'm back.
Now I can hear you.
Okay. Yep. No, I'm sorry. Mutual funds is something you've mentioned a couple times, and there may be folks watching that aren't familiar with mutual funds. Can you break that down?
Yeah, a mutual fund is basically just a fund that's comprised of a lot of different stocks. So, for example, like anybody can go, they can, go to the bank, go to their brokerage, Charles Schwab or whoever, and set up a brokerage account. And then you can go buy whatever stocks you want. You can buy Apple, you can buy Microsoft, you can buy Ford, you can buy General Motors, you can buy Exxon, you can, all these different companies about, you can buy stock in those companies. Well, what a mutual fund does is they have a manager who just decides which stocks to buy and then puts them all in a portfolio. And that's what's called the mutual fund. So yeah, that's basically what a fund is.
Okay. And then you said the ETF is similar to the mutual fund. So it's basically a collection of stocks that you can trade on the stock market.
Yeah, that's right. The only real difference between them, and by the way, we should provide a disclosure here. I'm not a financial professional, and neither are you. This is not like, we're not experts. Nobody should follow this advice. If you make or lose any money based on like the opinions that we're giving today, that's on you. These are just opinions, and we're not licensed professionals or anything.
Absolutely.
So I don't want your audience to go making any life-changing decisions based on, what amateurs like me are, saying. I'm just speaking about my own personal experience.
No, absolutely. Thank you for that.
Yeah, but and also, by the way, I probably might mischaracterize some things a little bit just because I'm not an expert. So if anybody wants, down in the comments or whatever, if I say something wrong, feel free to point that out and make a correction. I'd appreciate that. But yeah, anyway, an ETF is basically the same thing as a mutual fund, but it can be traded in real time. So a mutual fund, like let's say you've got $10,000 in a particular mutual fund, and one day you want to sell $2,000 of it and get some money out. Well, if today is Tuesday, you put in the order to sell it, and it's not going to be processed for a day. So you're not going to get your money out until Wednesday, or maybe it needs all of Wednesday to process, and you don't get your money till Thursday. Whereas an ETF trades like a regular stock. Like, so for example, if you own stock in Apple and, at 3:00 in the afternoon, you decide you want to sell your, $1,000 of Apple stock, boom, you just go in and make the order on your phone or on the computer or whatever. And in a fraction of a second, it's sold and you've got the cash. Well, an ETF is the same way. It's still a fund that has a bunch of stocks, but you can sell it instantly. So that helps you get access to your money quicker, or if, something's like the stock market is crashing one day and you just want to get out of it as fast as possible. An ETF is just more liquid because you can buy and sell it instantly.
Got you. So you mentioned earlier that you were checking in on some things in terms of trying to be current about John Vogel and his basis for starting index trading. And so to that point, I wanted to go and ask, how do you stay informed about market trends and financial news?
Well, see, that's the reason I invest in these index funds, is because I don't follow all that stuff. So, if somebody's buying their own stocks, they have to stay up on all of that, right? They have to know what's going on with those individual companies. They have to know what's going on with the overall stock market. They have to know how the Fed is changing interest rates. They might want to factor in, other things that are going on in the news that might affect, their companies that they own. And I just, I'm not an expert in that. That's not my passion. That's not my hobby. So I don't have the time to do it. And I'm not an expert.
Okay.
And remember, I said no professional fund manager can outperform the stock market in the long term.
Right.
So if the professionals can't beat the stock market, then the amateurs like me certainly can't beat the stock market either.
Mm-hmm.
So that's exactly why I invest in index funds, is
Mm-hmm.
because I'm no smarter than the market, and I don't spend any time on it. I don't watch it. I don't follow it. I don't, I don't have to make any decisions. I just put the money in there and I just let it ride.
Mm-hmm. So to that point, thank you for that. I know what you mean. It is very difficult. I have been an active trader actually since 2013, and I did very well, especially when Facebook first started. That was the first stock that I ever purchased. I
Oh,
bought
no.
it for $15 and sold it for 78. Should have still held on to it till today. But to that end, I actively, well, then before I got as busy as I am now, would focus on the stock readers and the charts. You know what I mean? Candlesticks. So I'm
Yep.
very familiar with the process of trading. And like you said, when you think you're gonna take a profit and you got to go purchase a stock, then before they came out with the apps was $8.95. I go through Charles Schwab, $8.95 to make to enter a trade, $8.95 to come out of a trade. So when I would sit and work on my Excel sheet, I had to make sure that I had my pluses and minuses lined up so I know exactly what I would be earning from the trading of the stock. And I
Right.
said that this year I wanted to commit to getting back to it. But again, the difficulty is just having to sit down, and I know that I would have an opportunity to look the day before or on a weekend, but not the day of, which sometimes can be good when you're trying to do at least day trading. But that's for another lesson. I'm not gonna get into that with either because I'm not a professional. I just do it and I have a way of doing it. I've created
Right.
my own little process and approach.
Well, yeah, and
Um,
you're just to build on what you're saying, you're making a good point, and this is something I want to make clear too, is that the reason that me and a lot of people invest in the stock market is because that's going to be your highest return in the long run, right?
mhm,
So again, the average is about 10% a year, and there's no other investment that you can make, CDs or bonds or anything like
mhm,
that, that's going to make 10% on average over the long term. But now that term on average is key, because the stock market could go down 10, 20, 30, 40% in a year. So you can you can lose money. That 10% is in no way guaranteed. So nobody listening to your show should take any money that they've saved that they might need within the next 1 year or even 5 or 10 years and put it in the
mhm,
stock market. Because you could, if you had 1,000, 2,000, 5,000, $10,000 saved, and you're like, oh yeah, I want to put in $10,000 today and take it out next year, it will have appreciated to 10%. So now I'll have 11,000, and then
right.
I'm going to take it out and buy a car or something. Well, the problem is with that is that you put it in the stock market. Well, the stock market might go down next year,
Mhm,
and you lose 20%, and your
mhm,
10,000 goes from 10,000 to 8,000, and now you lost money.
mhm,
So the stock market is really only for money that you're saving up for retirement, or something like that, where you don't need it for a long, long time. If you
yeah.
have money that you want to earn some interest on, you have savings, then yeah, put that in a savings account, a money market, a CD, something. Now you're not going to get 10%, but like these days with interest rates being so high, you might get 5%, 4%,
Mhm,
and even when interest rates are low, you might get 1%. But at least you're going to be earning a little bit of interest on your money, and there's no chance that you'll lose money, right?
right.
Because it's just an interest bearing account. So yeah, as people are just starting out saving, maybe they've just saved up $100 or $500 or $1,000, they should absolutely not put that in the stock market,
Yeah.
because it's just too volatile. Like they might make 20%, but they might lose 40%. And if that money is important to them and they're going to need it in the short term, then the stock market is probably not the right place to put it.
I think so. Absolutely right. And it's important that folks do understand that you you can, there are opportunities for you to save in various ways. So, and I'll just talk about some of the ways in which I do. And this was something that my twin brother, who is a little bit more financially astute in various ways, was saying as an opportunity, and we all have it, to take out and pay ourselves first. So when you get paid from whatever job you do, you take 10% of that as the fee for the person that actually did the work, and then you put that away, And now we've been able to take it a step further because these were things we were doing 10, 15 years ago. And so now we're at the point where we have a pocket here for investing. We have another pocket here where we have high interest savings accounts. And we have another pocket here where we put away rainy day funds, things that you might need in the future. So if you have car insurance and you know that your deductible is 1,000, you put 1,000 in that so that you already have that, and things like that helps you to already segment the money so that when you need it, it's available for you.
Yep.
So I wanted to throw out some of those things because I wanted to talk a little bit about your own personal strategies and things that you think about when you go into investing and saving. And so how do you plan for and manage your personal finances, including budgeting and saving?
Yeah. So, I mean, what I would say is just like what you were saying is everybody should have a budget, especially, if you're young, you just got your first job, or you don't have a lot of money saved, maybe you just got a new job, you're making a little bit more money than you used to. You've got to have a budget, and you have to live off of your budget, not off of your paycheck. So that's, the mistake I see a lot of people make is, they get to the end of the week and they get their paycheck. It's, $1,000 or $2,000 or whatever it is. And then they're like, oh, great. Like I have 15, it's Friday. I just got paid. I got $1,500. Now, what am I going to spend it on? Oh, well, I got some bills to pay. So let me pay X, Y, and Z. But I also want to buy an Xbox. So let me buy this Xbox. And I also want to take my girlfriend out to eat. So I got some money now. Let's go do that. Like they're just spending that money, instantly based on kind of a rank ordering of priorities that they have in their head at that moment. And that is absolutely the wrong way to budget your money. The way to budget your money is kind of like, I mean, you didn't say this exactly, but this is where I think you're alluding to is like, get on your computer, or you can even do it on your phone and create a Google sheet, like a little spreadsheet, and go in there and just make a column for every month and a row for every expense. So just like you were saying, you got, your rent or your mortgage and your car payment and your insurance and your groceries and your dining out and your entertainment and your savings and, whatever, your college, loan repayments, whatever, you have everything listed out. And so, okay, well, I need to pay, my rent is, $1,100 a month, and my car payment is $400 a month, and my insurance is $200 a month, and my, whatever. And that all adds up. And okay, if that adds up to, $4,000 a month, and you're making $4,200 a month, well, you've only got $200 a month extra. So, don't get all excited and go spending a bunch of money, because then you're not going to be able to cover that 4,000. So it's just really important to budget and plan ahead and live off of that budget. Don't live off your paycheck. Live by the budget and just, work the paycheck kind of into that accounting, into that list. But you really have to stick to those categories and make sure you don't get off your budget.
So to the point of Salima, she was saying, hypothetically, if the income is 5,000, the budget is 2,200. When you say live off the budget, what does that mean for the other 2,800 that will be remaining out of the 5,000? What are you saying we do with that?
Well, yeah, if you have, so if you have a $2,800 surplus every month, that's fantastic. Then somebody's doing really well. So first of all, good for them that they budgeted and planned it that way, right? To where they're like, okay, I got my pay for the month. I'm paying everything I need, and that leaves 2,800. Well, now they need to decide what to do with that 2,800. So, they could add another line item on their budget that says, hey, I want to save $1,000 a month. So they just add a new line on there. And so, okay, I'm going to save $1,000 a month and I still have 1,800. Okay, well, 1,800, now you can decide what you want to do with that. Do you want to go on a vacation? Do you want to give to charity? Do you want to buy a gift for somebody? Do you want to, get a new TV? Do you, or do you just want to put a little bit more into savings this month? Or what I would recommend too is if you have any debt, car payment,
Gotta start with that.
or especially credit card payments.
Oh yeah.
Pay that stuff off, because this is another thing I tell my friends and family when I talk to them about personal finances, and and any personal finance person that you follow on YouTube or whatever will tell you this, is that just don't have debt. Debt is the worst, right? Because if you charge $1,000 on a credit card, well, if you pay that back over a year, much less 2 or 3 years, you're going to end up paying $1,500 or $2,000.
Right.
So now instead of paying $1,000 for something that costs $1,000, you just paid $2,000 for something that costs $1,000. And if you default on your credit card, well, then maybe you don't have to pay all of that back, but now your credit score is all messed up
for 7 years.
Yeah, which is going to mess up, getting, renting an apartment or buying a car at a good interest rate and things like that. So, that's the whole thing about living within your means. So that person who's making $5 and they only need, $2,200 to cover their expenses, that's great, because they're making way more than they need, and so that's the position that you want to be in. But if you're not making $5,000 a month, let's say you're only making $2,000 a month, you got to find a way to live within your means. And if that means that, you can't afford to have a car because you can't afford the car payment and gas and maintenance and insurance, then that's the way you got to live. Like, that's having a car is not for you. That's for somebody that makes more money. Now, if you want to go back to school and get a better job and make more money so you can afford a car, that's great. But don't get yourself into a position where you're living a lifestyle that you can't afford, because then you're behind on things, you're going to be stressed out, and that's just not a position you want to be in. Or, if you're not making a bunch of money, then maybe you can't afford to, eat out at restaurants. And so you got to, make your lunch in the morning and take it to work with you, and, cook your dinners at home and stuff like that, which, and that's fine. Some people like a real simple lifestyle. And, I've got friends that do that are not making a lot of money, and they don't have a lot of aspirations to make more money, but they live a very, very, very simple, inexpensive lifestyle, and they're okay with that.
Yeah. I wanted to add to that, one of the things that folks could do, especially in this era of credit card offers, is look for the ones with the 0% APR that allows you to make purchases that you won't have to pay interest on right away. And then even then you want to stay beyond the means of the 30% threshold that they give you, because you do that and you pay it off by the statement date, then that gives you an opportunity to grow your credit profile higher as well. So if it was me and I had a hypothetical $2,800 remaining, I may then go try to get a credit card with the 0% APR that might have a $500 limit, and then I might focus only on using that for gas or something. And I would especially go get one that either gives me points for travel or reward points for spending in some way, shape, or form, so that I could use those points for other things.
Right. Yeah. I agree with you in principle, but I would say that you got to be really careful. And when I say you, I just mean everybody, anybody. You know what I'm saying? Because like if you make a lot more money than you need, then you're right. Like for example, I almost all of my spending I do through credit cards, because I get those reward points, cash back or miles or whatever. But like you said, I pay them off every single month. So I'm getting, roughly 2%, so if I spend, $1,000 on credit cards, then that's like $20 for free every month that I'm getting basically. But if you even once don't pay your bill and you get a little bit of interest or a late fee or something like that, that will immediately cost you more than all of
Yeah.
those rewards. And so I would just tell people to be
Agree.
very, very careful with credit cards, because it's very easy to be like, oh, well, I don't have the money, let me put it on a credit card. Well, then, 3 months later, the next thing you know, you've got $6,000 on your credit card at a 20% interest rate. That's a lot of money that's coming out of your pocket just to pay interest, and it's not getting you anything. So, and even with the 0%, like, if you pay it off every month, which is what you should do, then it
Mm-hmm.
doesn't matter. Like most of my credit cards, the interest rates are probably 25% and higher. They're very, very high. But
Right.
it doesn't matter, because I pay it off every month, so I never pay interest. And
Mm-hmm.
so really the interest rate, if you're paying it off every month, it shouldn't matter.
Yeah.
Now, if you do have debt, yes, maybe you want to transfer that balance to a 0%, credit card, so you're not incurring the fees, while you get it paid off. But yeah, I mean, my recommendation to people, especially when they're just starting out, and if they don't have a big surplus at the end of every month and their budget is kind of tight, just
Yeah.
learn that discipline of living off of your debit card and only spending the money
Yeah.
that you have, and don't mess around with credit cards until you've got a $1 or $2 or $3,000 a month surplus. Okay, now you can start using credit cards for getting those rewards, because you're not going to be in a pinch where you're spending beyond your means.
Yeah. Respectfully, I thank you for clarifying, because that's what I mean. I mean, when you have made it to a point where you have a bit of a surplus, because when you talk about things like wanting to go get some property, even just a home in general, a car, all of those things, they're going to take a look at that credit score. So you
Yeah,
have to figure out a way to be building it anyway.
good point.
So I'm really talking about strategies towards building it when you are in a stable enough position to do so. So for y'all watching, yeah, don't go get no credit cards if you can't afford no credit card. If you if you have a surplus of $2,000+, that's when you should really start looking into that. Even and it could be a bit less, but understandably, you when you have a credit card in your pocket, sometimes you have a burning need to spend, 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 and that is not good at all. So please be mindful of the fact that those that have really good credit profiles, or in some respects, are really good with the way that they spend, and sometimes those that don't even think about it probably have a whole lot of money. So it depends on which category you fall into, where your credit doesn't matter. But in this lifetime, once they establish credit as a way to check everything from where you could rent to where you could live, then it became real.
Yeah. Well, and,
Yeah.
and you do make a good point too, that ironically, credit cards can help you build your credit score, because with a credit card, it's a loan, it's a personal loan that you're taking out, and so that gets reported to the credit bureaus, and it helps you build credit. Because basically, what the credit bureaus are doing is, and people, you hear about your FICO score. That's one of the scores that the credit bureaus
Mm-hmm.
use or create. Is they're basically just looking at, like, are you paying your bills every month? And your rent affects your credit score, your car payment, your mortgage payment, your cable or internet bill, your cell phone bill, like, anything like that is going to help you build your credit. And credit cards will also help you build your credit, because you're proving to the credit bureaus that, hey, I have a loan and I'm making a regular payment on it.
Mm-hmm.
And so you do want to have some consumer debt like that and some accounts like that to help you build your credit score. And so, yeah, like you're saying, like, yeah, maybe you want to have one credit card and use it just a little bit to help you, build up your credit score, and have it, in case of emergencies, your transmission goes out and you need $1,200 in a hurry that you don't have. Okay, well then maybe you got to use your credit card. But yeah, just be careful with that.
Yeah, definitely. So we got quite a few questions that popped up and some responses as well. The first one, I don't know if, again, this is something that you can answer or would like to answer, but it's, when is the right time to invest? And what is the lowest amount you can invest?
Yeah. So again, I'm not a professional. You can go find articles, or go down to your bank and ask. But from my personal experience, is that there are a lot of brokerages, like you mentioned Schwab. I think you're using Schwab.
Yep,
I've
I
used
use
Schwab for
Schwab.
a long time.
Hmm.
but E-Trade, Ameritrade, Vanguard, Fidelity, all these different companies are brokerage firms, and a lot of banks too. Like you might have a checking account at Chase. Well, Chase also has a brokerage arm, so you could probably just go into your local Chase bank where you already have your checking account and say, hey, I want to open a brokerage account so I can buy and sell stocks and mutual funds, and they'll help you do that. And these days, they have all of these brokerages are basically discount brokerages. So it used to be that you had to pay a fee to open your account, you had to pay fees to trade stocks and all of this. But now these discount brokerages, it's free to open an account. You can open an account with as little as probably $1,000, maybe even less. And it's not going to cost you anything to open that account. And it's probably not going to cost you anything to start trading or buying and selling securities. So yeah, I think that's just like when you're 14 or 16 and you get your first job and you go down to the bank and set up a checking account. It's the same thing. Every adult should just should set up their brokerage account, even if they have hardly anything in it, so they've got a place to put their money when they want to start investing, and saving like that. And in terms of what's the right time, like there is no right time. There's no wrong time. Like, the best time is now, basically, because, like the saying goes, the best time to plant a tree is 30 years ago. The second best time to plant a tree is right now. Right. So basically better late than never. So, and by the way, that's another reason why I really like index investing. Again, if you've got enough that you can save for the long term, is because that you want to be investing a little bit every month, and that's called dollar cost averaging. So what you don't want to do is try to time the market to be like, oh well, the market's up right now, so I'm going to sell everything and cash out, and then the market's way down right now, so I'm going to pile my money in and buy a bunch of stuff so it can go up and I can make a lot of money. Well, the problem with that is, again, nobody is smarter than the market. So you will never be able to guess, what's the high and what's the low and make those decisions at the right time. So instead, again, when you're making your budget, even if it's only $100 a month, just be like, okay, I got $100 a month to invest. And then every month you invest that into your portfolio. So that way you're not guessing about the timing. You're not just putting, $100 a month into cash and now you've got $1,000 and you're like, okay, well, should I put it all into the market this month, or next month, or next year, or what? If you just do it a little bit every single month, that's called dollar cost averaging. And all those ups and downs will kind of work themselves out over time. And so you won't get burned about, making a decision and getting the timing wrong.
No, absolutely. I wanted to say too, to the point, as you mentioned, some of these brokerages that you can set up. And now with the advent of the apps, the Stash, the Robinhood, the Webull, all of these, which are on my phone now, I've used them for various purposes, even crypto trading and investing when that was a hugely popular thing. But I really focus on the Stash. I really like the fact that they have all of the options that I'm looking for outside of options trading. But that's for, again, another topic, another time.
Yep.
But that's where I like to put my money at too. And those places, I give you the opportunity for the lowest cost possible, really, because they may charge you a $5 a month maintenance fee, if nothing else, but you can get in and out the trades just like you would if you had a traditional brokerage to go to. And so those are options. And then to the point of what you're saying, dollar cost averaging, which again, that was a concept that my twin brother brought to the table some years ago. And that's something that he actually does actively with when he invests. He does dollar cost averaging. He swears by it and lives by it. And like you were saying, it gives you an opportunity to just take the money that you're going to set aside for investing anyway and just keep putting it into the stock. Because over the long term, especially if they're going to utilize the index method, it's going to go up anyway. For anybody that follows the S&P, the S&P has always grown since 1920 when it was established. It has always grown. That's one in the top 500 stock markets, which stock on the in the market, which is the S&P is composed of, will always, not always. Let me backtrack always, but theoretically, they should always perform well because they're the top 500 stocks in the market, in the U.S. market at least.
That's
So
right.
as long as U.S. is a thriving country, the S&P will always be a successful, folks. And you can take whatever piece of money that you have and invest. You don't need a large sum of money. Like Big Brother Jeff is stating, you can take $100, and in fact, if you have it available, you should take that $100 and be putting it there.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to touch on that. We had
Yeah,
a couple.
yeah, that's a great point. And by the way, if people are looking for specific funds, like you mentioned, the S&P 500, there's a fund, and the ticker symbol is SPY.
Oh yeah,
Or and that's S&P 500. Or if you want to invest in the Nasdaq, there's a fund that's QQQ, which is just tracks the Nasdaq. And then there's obviously the S&P 500 is the biggest 500, but if you want to get even broader than that, there's what they call broad market funds. Like, for example, one that I invest in is with Schwab, and the ticker symbol is SCHB. Again, I'm not a professional. I don't know if that's going to do any better or worse than anything else, but it's just an example of a broad market fund. But again, if you're trading with, Chase or Fidelity or Vanguard or whoever, they're all going to have their own broad market index funds, with really low management fees. And that's what we're talking about here. And then one other thing I'll say too is that some people like to have a little bit of international exposure in their portfolio. But the thing that you got to remember is that because all these American companies are so big, Exxon, Apple, they're buying and selling, all over the world, McDonald's, whoever, like these American companies are international companies. So when you are investing in one of these broad market funds, you're naturally going to get a lot of international exposure. So you don't necessarily need to seek out an international fund that focuses specifically on companies that are international. You can if you want to, but just know that even when you are investing in U.S. stocks, you're still getting a lot of international exposure.
Yes, sir. So Keith, you were saying invest in a dividend at the back end and have it go back into the stock so your money is making you money. And you're absolutely right. You're talking about the DRIP method, the dividend reinvestment. Can't think of what the I is.
Plan, program, something.
Plan, the I, but reinvestment program, I suppose. Maybe the dividend reinvestment program. Okay, that sounds about right. So the DRIP method allows you to reinvest any dividends that are made. But I think that's again a different conversation, because you'd have to go and unpack what a dividend is, which essentially is organizations paying you to hold their stock. So for those that are listening, go research what a dividend is. Go look for some of the top dividend bearing companies, and then see if they're involved in that index that Big Brother Jeff is sharing. And then you will have a collection of dividend bearing stocks, and then you just put it on the DRIP so that the money that you make for holding those companies go right back into your account to make more money.
Yeah, and that's a great point. And by the way, most brokerages, when you're in the app on your phone or you're on the website, that it'll be just a little like slider or something that you can select. So let's say you own an index fund, you can just select reinvest dividends or don't reinvest dividends. And if you reinvest it, then when you get your dividends on a monthly or quarterly basis from all the, like you're saying, all the stocks that do issue dividends, like McDonald's and Exxon and Walmart and whoever, when they issue, you might get $1.50 in dividends. And if you have dividend reinvestment or like DRIP, like you're talking about, turned on, instead of giving you that cash and putting it in your account, it'll put it, it'll just say, okay, well, you had, 100 shares. And so you got a little bit of dividends. So we'll go buy one more share. And that is a way to boost up your savings. Now, one thing to keep in mind is that those dividends do get taxed, which, when they're small, it's not a lot, but like, you might get to the end of the year and you're doing your taxes, and your accountant or or you're looking at your statement, and you're like, wait, $100 in dividends? Like, I didn't get $100. What are you talking about? Well, that's right, you didn't get it because you reinvested it, but you had it for a fraction of a second before it got reinvested, so it counts as income. So you'll
Right.
still have to pay some tax on that at the end of the year. But yeah, as long as you can afford it, it's worth reinvesting. But now when you get later in life, like me, getting into retirement, now's the time when I'm thinking about turning off my dividend reinvestment. Maybe I want to
Mm,
let my stocks sit, and I don't want to have to sell any of my stocks. I don't want to have to take any tax consequences.
hmm
I want to let that keep appreciating in value. But maybe instead of reinvesting the dividend to buy more stock, maybe I just want to take that out in cash so I can have to pay my expenses every month. So as your life
hmm
stage changes, you can change what you want to do with those dividends, whether you reinvest it or you keep them to spend.
Absolutely. So to shift back to the conversation about credit and things like that, Salima had mentioned earlier if you had an opinion on affirms or afterpays. Do you know what those are?
um are those is that like the buy now pay later, or is that the
Absolutely. The new layaway,
okay? uh,
if you will.
Well, okay, so let's make sure we get our terms correct. So my understanding of layaway is that you're paying in advance, right? So this was like in the old days, like in the 50s and the 60s, you could go down to the store and they might have a bicycle you wanted to buy for your kid for Christmas, but you didn't have $100. So you just tell the store owner, okay,
No, you're right. You're
I'm
right.
gonna
You're on the
give
right track. I was
you
wrong. You're right.
I'm gonna
You're
give you
right.
twenty
Yep.
dollars a month for 5 months, and then
Right.
when I give you the 100, you'll give me the bike. So that's layaway. I don't even know if
Not the
that.
new not layaway. I said the wrong term. I'm gonna think of it as you're speaking, but not layaway. So
Yeah.
you're right. It's not layaway though. You're right.
But this like buy now, pay later. Look, it's just a loan. That's whether it's a credit card or it's just a loan. Now, again, I'm not an expert in this. I don't use this buy now, pay later stuff, but I have done some stuff in the credit card industry before, so I know a little bit about it. Just my personal understanding is that like you're buying something on Amazon or some other site, and then you go to the payment page and you can put in your credit card, or you can do this buy now pay later thing, and it has a bunch of different names. And basically what they're telling you is that you're basically saying, I don't have the cash to pay for it now, but I think I can, maybe it's $90, right? And you're like, I'm gonna make three $30 payments for 3 months, right? Three
Right.
times 30 is 90.
hmm
And in those 3 months, they're not going to charge you any interest. So that sounds like a fantastic deal, right? Instead of giving you $90 today, I can give you $30 a month for 3 months and still only pay 90. I don't have to pay any interest. So that sounds great.
hmm
But you got to understand is that you're entering into a financial contract with whoever is, whatever bank is issuing that financial instrument. You're entering into a contract with them just like you would with a credit card. So if you don't pay it off in 3 months, right? Let's say you make your first $30 payment, you make your next $30 payment, but then month three comes up, you got to make your third $30 payment, but you don't have $30. So you don't pay it that month. Well, now it rolls to the next month. Now you're going to get hit with interest and fees,
Right.
right? So it's telling you you've got this 90-day grace period or 60 days or whatever the length of the time is. You have this grace period to pay it off with no interest. But what the way they make their money is for all the people who don't pay it off in time and
hmm
go long, and then it's basically just like a credit card. Now you're going to pay interest, you're going to pay late fees and stuff like that.
hmm
So again, my personal recommendation would be avoid. That's just another kind of a loan, just like a credit card. So avoid that if you can. If you don't
Yeah.
have money to buy it today, then just don't buy it. And save up the money until you can buy it. But don't borrow money from your future self to buy
Right.
something today. Don't.
Especially if it's just something that you want. Like we have to break down this understanding of wants and needs. You know what I mean?
I love that.
Part of it is we are seeing things that are shiny objects that we really just want,
Yep.
and the need isn't great enough. And so if you determine that you're going to purchase this thing that has no real value outside of, it being shiny for you or whomever it be for, then that's part of the mistake of life right there. When we talk about budgeting, to go back to that point, you have to look at the things that are actually necessary for you to live a comfortable life, whatever those things are. And then everything outside of that just becomes something that you would like to have, that you'd wish to have or want to have, in other words. But you have to be careful about those things and understand the two.
Yeah. Yeah. No,
Mm-hmm.
I think it's a good point. Yeah. If it's a, you know, new video game system or something, you you probably don't need it, and yeah. And the other thing too is, I don't know. I mean, Brian will tell you, I'm not a very flashy person. I don't, I don't really care about impressing other people, and that can save you a lot of money, right? Because if you're trying to buy, fancy shoes or a Louis Vuitton purse or Prada sunglasses or Mercedes or an iPhone 27 Max Plus with 18 cameras, or all this stuff that you're trying to impress other people with, like, you're going to spend a lot of money, and what's the caliber of the person who gets impressed by that stuff, right? Who are you running with that like cares about that stuff? Like, the right people to run with are the people that don't care about that stuff. They don't care what you're wearing or what you're driving. They just care about you and how you are as a person and how you treat them and how you take care
And you
of
saying
them.
the word right there, Jeff. That's a word. That's a
Yeah, yeah,
word right there, Jeff. That's a
yeah.
word, man.
So it's
I
yeah, being humble is a low cost lifestyle, and so I would recommend it.
I like that. I always had a cousin that told me that I was gonna be doing some good things in life, and he always said, "Hey, twin, of course, because I'm a twin. He's twin. Whatever you do, just stay humble. Just stay humble, twin." That's all he used to say every time he saw me. He say, "Just stay humble, twin." And I seen him maybe about 2 weeks, not 2 weeks ago. It was 2 to 3 months ago. And I was like, "Man, what's up, cuz, man? Hey, I never forget what you told me. You always told me he didn't work out for you." I was like, yeah, I would say to this point, being humble has worked out for me for sure.
That's
I'm not
good.
afraid to go to the thrift store.
Yeah.
I'm not afraid to live below my means. I don't have to look like everybody. I don't want to look like everybody else, in fact. Speaking of, why look like somebody else when you can have one of these? Come on with it. Listen, y'all already know what you got to do. Subscribe, like, share, comment something that you learned by watching this. We dropping jewels. There's a lot of gems with Jeff. And I know you want to rock your West Side shirt because you're from the West Side just like me. So with that being said, go to my YouTube and do all those things, and I promise you I'm going to pick you at random so you can have one of these hoodies. I got the extra large and I got the large still. So let me know what you're trying to do.
Do you have a
So
do you have a merch store if I want to buy one of those?
I mean, I got the person that got them. I got the person that got them.
Okay, okay.
They're not mine, but I buy local. I support business owners that's trying to do their thing, and I'm really dedicated to that this year. In addition to doing this content, I really want to support the community by giving back. I was thinking about doing money, but I figured, you know what? Let me go support some folks, and then I'll be able to give some things away, and hopefully big up their business at the same time.
Well, you have to send me the link so I can buy one.
Hey, big brother Tough coming through, 290 tough and stuff. I got you. Um, so Mosaic said a Benz is necessary for life.
No,
He's an extravagant guy. He's an extravagant guy. So I do want to. There's a couple comments, and then I may have just a couple more questions. I ain't gonna hold you too long. How much time do I got with you?
I'm good. I got time.
Okay. Most classes, professors, we only have about an hour 20 or so. So I got you. Don't keep
All
you
right.
on too long. So brother Keith, as we were talking earlier about the credit cards and potentially staying away from them if you don't have the means, he was saying that he didn't believe that it was true that the credit card can replace the cash. Nothing should have direct access to the cash. And if you're going to get a credit card, get one with a limit on the cash that you're going to spend anyway. So what are your thoughts about that?
Yeah, so I'm not sure I'm interpreting what he's saying exactly right, but what I think he's saying is that the fraud protection on a credit card is different than the fraud protection on a debit card. And if that's what he's saying, he's right about that.
Okay.
So like if you're using a credit card and you go to a restaurant and somebody takes your card and writes down the number and then buys some stuff fraudulently on that, you are not going to be liable for that. That's why the credit card company has all these fees, is to
Mm-hmm.
cover you for the fraud and stuff. Now if somebody gets your debit card and they somehow get some money out of your bank account, I think, again, I'm not an expert, but I think you do not have as much protection from fraud on a debit card as you do on a credit card. So if he's basically saying, like, hey, use a credit card to keep your cash safe where nobody can dip directly into your checking account, I understand that. And I think that's a good point. Again, it's a little bit risky to use credit cards, but if you have the self discipline, like he was saying, and you're only going to spend as much in a month on your credit card as you can afford to pay, then
Right.
yeah, that does give you a little bit of barrier to fraud that way.
Right. And I think he's also, in addition to the fraud piece, he may be also stating that credit cards do give you cash advance limits. So he's saying that if I suppose if you're going to spend a certain amount of cash anyway, get the card that has the cash advance limit. You can take the cash off of that and replace it in XYZ, and you can also build the credit. Say, I feel like that's what he was going with. I don't think he's still on, but
Yeah, one thing I'll say about that is you got to be careful about is do not take cash advances off of your credit card because they will charge you a fee.
mm,
So, like if you go to the store and you buy something with your credit card and you pay it off at the end of the month, you're not going to pay any fee. But if you
mm,
go to the ATM and use your credit card to get a cash advance, they're going to charge you like 5 or 10% right there. Boom,
mm-hmm.
transaction fee. So yeah, don't ever use your credit card for cash advances. If you need cash, use your debit card.
Okay. I see what you. So you have a question, which is, what do you think about leveraging a credit to buy an asset that you can make money with, like a
Yeah,
pickup?
yeah, absolutely. Look, this is the one place where it does make sense to use credit, um, which is, and because, look, there's like, this is one of the things I tell my kids. There's two ways you can spend your money. One is an expense, and one is an investment. So
Mm,
everything that we've been talking about up to now has been an expense. If you go out to eat, that's an expense. You spent that
right,
money, you're never getting it back. If you go
right.
out and buy a PlayStation, that's an expense. You're never going to get it back. I mean, maybe you'll sell it used a year from now for $100 or something, get a little bit back. But you know what I'm saying? Like, so, paying your rent, paying your cell phone bill. Those are all expenses, right? That's
Mm,
just money going out the window to pay for stuff. Now, I think it was RC was saying,
mm,
what about buying a cargo van, or what if you want to go out, use your credit card to buy a lawnmower and start cutting grass and getting paid, $30-$40 an hour to cut grass? That's an investment, right? And so that makes a ton of sense. That's capitalism, right? That's how people make money. That's how the rich people got rich at some point, is they started with nothing and they made an investment in something, whether it was a lawnmower or a dry cleaning business or a car
mm-hmm,
wash or drilling a hole in the ground to pump oil out or something.
mm-hmm,
Somebody had to make an investment. And so there, yeah, absolutely. If you're going to spend $1,000 to buy a bunch of equipment that's going to earn you $10,000, then that's a hell of an investment, and that's better than any kind of return you're going to get in the stock market. If you can invest
mm-hmm,
1,000 to get 10,000, that's a 10x return on your money. That's a fantastic investment.
mm-hmm.
But what I would say about that is just make sure that you're committed to getting that return. So you don't want to be like, oh well, I'm going to buy this lawnmower and then start cutting grass, but then you go and cut one lawn and that's it, right? You
Mm-hmm.
make that investment, you got to stick with it.
Mm-hmm.
Make sure that
Good
you're going to
point.
do the work, to get the return on that investment. But absolutely, yeah,
That's a good
making an
point.
investment like that. I mean, you gotta bet on yourself in this world, and so I think that's smart.
Yeah, absolutely. No, that's the right way. Appreciate that. So I got to probably And no, thank you for checking in with us, RC. Appreciate you. And then so I got a pretty much one more question to ask you, and um, I'm going to throw it up here. So, can you share a successful investment story, or maybe even a valuable lesson that you've learned from a financial mistake, if you've ever made any?
Let's see. From a mistake. Um, yeah, so I think not so much on the investing side,
Okay.
because I've had just such a simple strategy there that's all been mostly fine. Um, but I guess this is more of like career advice. So um, I've started 2 or 3 or 4 businesses in my life. I started a business after business school I told you about earlier called Next
Mhm.
Part. I tried this other business called Right Coach briefly, which was like time sharing of RVs. I had a product development company called Question Ventures for a year or two. And then right now I'm doing, consulting, which is just, kind of on my own, just freelance consulting. Um, but all of those decisions haven't necessarily been the best decisions in retrospect, because anytime you
Mhm.
go out on your own, you're taking a risk. And sometimes that risk doesn't pay off. Like RC was asking about, borrowing money to buy some equipment to make money in a job. Like if that pays off, that's a good investment. But if it doesn't pay off, then that's the risk you took, right? I mean, that's how capitalism works, right? You take a risk to get a reward, but sometimes you don't get a reward, and and it costs you something.
Mhm.
So, I guess just one piece of this is more career advice than investment advice, which is, if you can pick a career and stick with it for the long term, that's probably going to be your most successful, least risky way to get ahead. So if you're working in IT or marketing or whatever it is, you're an accountant or you're in finance or you're in marketing for a retail company or whatever, and you just stay on that path for your whole career, it's going to be pretty linear and pretty upward, and it should be pretty financially rewarding for you. Now for me, I got restless at times in my career, right? I worked somewhere for 4 or 5 years and then I want to try something else. But when you try something else, that's a risk because you're getting off of that very smooth upward trajectory. Whereas if
Mhm.
you stay doing the same type of job in the same type of industry for your whole life, it's very easy for all of the other companies and all the other people in that industry to understand what it is that you do, and the value
Mhm.
you bring and the experience that you have. Like if you're an accountant at um, like one car company, well, another car company could easily hire you to be an accountant for them because you're going to be doing the same thing, right? It's a no brainer.
Mhm.
It's really low risk for them. So anyway, it's just you have to decide what your profile is in terms of risk and reward and boredom and stuff like that. But if you can just pick a singular linear career path and stick with it, that's probably going to be the safest and potentially the most rewarding path. But like me, you might want to take some risks, and they might not always pay off. But you have to kind of reinvent yourself and try something new. But if you can learn fast and work hard, you can make that work too. It's just going to be a little dicier.
Yeah. Like my twin brothers say, man, you got to risk it for the biscuit, big brother Jeff. Come on, man.
Yeah.
And we moving into a totally different career-oriented environment with my current generation, millennial, and Gen Z right up behind us. And it's very different the way that the two groups operate in terms of how we view career orientation and
Yeah.
development and trajectories. So you're talking to a group of people who don't sit still very long. Um, Now that in itself is risky, but it also provides opportunity for growth in terms of money, because you did mention from the outset that one of the things that you have to do as a career oriented person is go get the largest bag that you can get, and then
Yeah.
live below your means so you can grow that bag and you can start to save and invest so you can retire at 50 like you. That said, the last question that I have for you is when did you start investing? You touched on compound interest. Compound interest is the eighth wonder of the world that people really don't understand as much as they should, but it is one of those things that when started early pays off in the very long run, like you said. And so when did you start investing?
Yeah, I started investing as soon as I graduated college and I got my first job.
And that
And
age is
I guess I was 22.
okay, 22.
So yeah, and that's definitely one piece of advice I would give you. And again, any of these like financial gurus that you see are going to give you the same advice, which is, if you're working for a company that has a 401k plan, then you need to maximize how much you put into your 401k every year. And your company probably is going to give you a match on that. And so just like we were talking about budgeting earlier, you're going to have a line item on your budget for your 401k, and you just pretend like you never had that money. It was never your money. And that's what I was saying about living off of your budget and not living off of your paycheck. So that money goes into your 401k. It's like you never had it, and you just let it ride, your whole career until you need to retire. And if you're working at a company that does not have 401k, then you can set up your own IRA, which also has annual limits. And same idea. You just put the maximum in your IRA every month up to the annual limit, and you just let that ride, your whole life until you're ready to retire. And then that money will be waiting because, like you're saying, compound interest, that has this curve. And, you're earning 10% a year, you're going to double your money about every 7 years. So let's say you put in, $10,000 at the beginning. Well, after, 7 years, that's going to be 20,000. And after 14 years, it's going to be 40,000. And after, 21 years, it's going to be 80,000 and so forth. Right. And that curve gets really steep at the end. But to your point, if you don't start that until late, that curve is getting shifted over, and it's not going to start until later. So if you want to have a lot of money when you're, later in life, you've got to start investing as much as you can early, because it doesn't seem like a lot right now, but a little bit today is a lot in the future. And if you wait, even 5 or 10 years, much less 20 years to get started, you're just not going to get the benefit of that compound interest as much.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, thank you for everything that you shared today. I think the folks that were listening definitely got blessed with a lot of gems and some jewels and some things that they can take back. And for those that felt like they didn't, I don't know why, because and I feel like you'd be lying to yourself. But that stated, I do see some opportunity to bring on somebody who may be in finance, right? That is directly responsible for whether it's a mutual fund or some investment options that folks can really tap into. Because I think there were a lot of questions in that realm. And again, neither one of us are financial gurus by no stretch of the imagination. We just have different types of strategies in order to make some money. And we know that the earlier you get into the market, the better, so that we all can look like Big Brother Jeff here, who is 50 years old, retired, going around the world. No gray hairs, it looks like, no forehead wrinkles, and doing CrossFit, man. I mean, he's living the life, guys. And so, listen, if you take anything from this, just go ahead and start. It don't matter where you're at, just start. Don't let the boat miss you. Just start. That being said, Big Brother Jeff, you want to say anything in closing?
No, I'm good. Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity. It was my pleasure to be here and have a chance to talk to your audience. And I really appreciate it. Hope we can do it again someday.
Yes, sir. Oh, man, most definitely. We have to. I'm sure there's some other things that we could discuss. So I appreciate you. And all right, y'all, class dismissed.